muting my Discord servers that I think people might actually contact me in. Ugh. Muting my Discord servers that I think people might actually contact me in. Ugh. Muting my Discord servers that I think people might actually contact me in. Your friends telling you that you screwed up. Ah. Pardon. 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 Pardon.
Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to a Fearapeutic Lens, where my wife Renee will use her expertise to share some insights that she has about psychology. Already messed up. Ooh. She'll share her insights on psychology in films or video games in the horror genre. Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to a Fearapeutic Lens, where
This is our first time. We're trying.
Oh, that was stupid. People will catch it in a minute, but apparently the audio from the stream I had up just doubled up on us, so yay. Just first time blunders. Anyway, so we're going to be covering movies, occasionally video games, horror genre, that kind of fun stuff. We might branch out in the future. So I'm going to pass it off to Renee to describe herself.
Hi, I'm Renee. So I'm a licensed therapist and a board-approved supervisor. I've been doing this for a really long time. Bachelor's degree and master's degrees are both in mental health. I've done inpatient groups, hospice, hospitals, private practice, and I'm a huge nerd. I love scary movies. I love psychology. I love getting my nerd on. So this is going to be super, super exciting for me. So thanks, guys, for listening, and be prepared to get a bunch of useless knowledge that you could maybe use on a trivia night sometime.
Cool. And I am her loving husband, Nox. We have been married 16 years, and we have a beautiful baby boy together. My role in this is that I will bounce questions off of Renee to provide, the layman's perspective. I also put all of this together. If the mistakes we just had are not make this obvious, I've never done this before. So if you're looking around and everything looks a little free trial, that's because I'm new at this and I'm learning as I go. So everything you see is subject to change and hopefully in the future improvement. Yeah. Anything to add before we start?
We do have dogs, so we apologize if they're noisy. We're hoping we got this all set up where this will be just a fun, nerdy time and not a lot of interruptions. So yeah, there's that.
Okay. All right. Tonight we are talking about The Ritual. It's a 2017 horror film on Netflix. It was directed by David Bruckner, written by Joe Barton, and is adapted from the 2011 novel of the same title by Adam Neville. This is not a review. We are operating under the assumption that you are familiar with the movie and looking for some kind of extra insights. If you haven't seen the movie, you might still get some entertainment out of us, but we do recommend you watch it because we both enjoy it. Do take notice, this is psychoanalysis purely for entertainment. It is not intended as therapeutic or diagnostic advice. If you're experiencing any mental health issues or related symptoms, please seek personalized care from a licensed professional. We're not here to help you. Sorry. This is just for entertainment.
And if you're in crisis, 988 in the US, I don't know what crisis hotlines are outside of the US, but yeah, please seek professional help. I highly, highly encourage actually talking to somebody and not finding stuff online if you can help it.
Without much further ado, The Ritual. It's fun. So at the start of the film, we're introduced to our band of guys. This is Hutch. He is played by Robert James Coulier. I believe that's how it's pronounced. What can you tell us about Hutch?
Well, I think it's a little bit step back where the reason that I like this movie so much and where I thought this could be a first movie for us to start with is basically the entire plot of the movie is stages of grief and like how people work through it. So the big thing about Hutch is, and we will dive deeper into this, all of the characters here stand for the 5 stages of Kubler-Ross. And if you're not familiar with Kubler-Ross, that's the 5 stages of grief. Everybody, I think, has kind of made fun of it in media. Simpsons did it. I love the, what is it? Robot Chicken did a thing with the giraffe that I think is hilarious. So going through this with the Kubler-Ross, the stages of grief, developed 1969. There are several different stages out there, different grief models. I prefer Teresa Rando myself. But you have the 5 steps of grief. And Hutch right here, he basically stands for denial. And the reason that I say that is because he is like the charismatic leader. He's always right. I know what's best. I know what's going on. I know what's happening. Never ever makes himself look like he's questioning himself or he doesn't know what he's doing or anything like that. So Hutch is very much the I think a self-appointed leader, to be perfectly honest, in the group. But yeah, never wrong, always knows what he's doing, always confident.
And after Hutch, we have Phil. Uh,
So
no, Phil
Phil,
is portrayed by the actor Arshur Ali. And go ahead and fill us in.
cool, sorry, still figuring this out. So no, Phil actually he's probably one of my favorites in the movie because he's just like so sarcastic and flat with a lot of his delivery. But he kind of fades in the background a little bit, which is sad. Phil would be the second step the way that this movie goes, which is bargaining. Again, he kind of fades in the background. He makes a lot of sarcastic comments, but a lot of times the sarcastic comments are uh like, "Oh, I bet you wouldn't do that." No, well, are you going to do this instead or um "Hey, I'll pay you to go do this." I'll go a little bit more detail as we kind of go through this stages of how the movie works, but there's a lot of things that he does that in the beginning I was like, well, he has to be bargaining because that's the only one that's left. But he does several things in the movie that I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, I see where this is going. Um, but yeah, like I said, he's actually one of my favorites just because he is super, super sarcastic, and that's kind of my sense of humor.
Hmm. Next, we have Dom. Dom is portrayed by Sam Troughton. Or Troughton? Troughton. That sounds right. Tell us about Dom, please.
Okay, so Dom is the next stage is anger. And again, I give character, but man, he's a huge jerk. But again, I feel like all of these characters are actually stuck in these different stages, represent these different stages, but he's definitely the anger person. And once the movie actually gets started after this whole intro part takes place, he's just mad at everybody. He's mad at the fact that they're in Sweden. He's mad at the fact that he twists his ankle in a hole. He's mad at the fact like the dude is never ever happy, but also it's never ever his fault. Like even when he falls, he's like, "Oh no, I've done this before. It's my knee. My knee's the problem." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, you not looking where you're going is the problem." But no, definitely anger, and I don't think it's subtle at all.
And next, we have our movie's protagonist, Luke, portrayed by Rafe Spall. Tell us about Luke.
Well, first off, I love Rafe Spall. He is such an underrated actor. He's so good. If you haven't seen Black Mirror, so good, so good. Anyway, um, Luke is our main protagonist. He's the one who we actually end up following for most of the movie, and he is definitely sadness in the five stages. Um, he's the one who has a lot of guilt and a lot of shame and tends to isolate himself from the group. Like once they're actually on the trip, he tends to kind of go off on his own and have a cigarette and be all brooding. And Hutch will usually come up to be like, "Hey, everything's fine." Again, he's denial. Um, so yeah, Robert is our or Luke. Sorry, Luke is our main protagonist and definitely represents the sadness factor, but then also he turns into acceptance toward the end of the movie, and it's his journey really that we're following here.
And then last, sort of, we have Rob, who is portrayed by Paul Reed. Tell us about Rob.
Yeah, I just called him Robert and I got super excited and ahead of myself. So, Rob is an interesting person in the five stages of grief, in my opinion, because the last stage is acceptance. You've accepted the grief, you've accepted that the thing or person is gone, and you're moving on. But the reason why I think he's acceptance is one, he's the one who suggests that they do the hike in Sweden. He's the one who's like, "Oh, hey, we should go and do this, and we'll do this together, and we'll be friends." And, just all the things that you want to have happen in life, that hope. And then here's spoilers. Telling you spoilers. If you have not seen this movie, I'm about to spoil it for you, but granted, it happens in the first 10 minutes, so it's not that big a deal in my opinion. He's the one who gets killed. He's the one that we're grieving. He's the one that we're sad about. But again, I think that him suggesting, let's do this, let's have this, let's be together, let's be friends, was a really big, like, acceptance part and sends them kind of all on this journey of grief. Um, so yeah, I thought that that was like, oh, well, where does he fit in? Oh, I guess that can make sense.
Yeah. And that is our group of characters that we're following for the movie. Our movie starts off with it's kind of a guys get together, kind of implied that they don't get together too often, but they do occasionally go on trips. Vegas is floated. There's other ideas. Then we fall to, there's a lot of arguing over where to go. Then we come to Rob, and he suggests a hike through Sweden. This idea doesn't actually seem to be a popular one, but then the meeting ends. They're going, out to decide who's leaving, who's going home, any rides or whatever. Then we have the miraculous event where Luke decides to step into a store to pick up some alcohol. Rob is the only one who will go with him. And unfortunately, this is the inciting event for the movie. This store is in the middle of being held up. Apparently, two ruffians have taken, I don't know, like the manager into the back because, Luke and Rob spy a clerk who's cowering behind the counter. She looks like she's been, knocked around. Before Luke and Rob can leave, the two, ruffians come, hold them up, and before they see them, Luke hides. But Rob is kind of frozen, and he gets spotted. So, thoughts?
So I think it's funny, ruffians. So drastic. But the thing that I think is interesting is that the situational awareness, they're so into what they're talking about. They don't even know that the clerk's not at the cashier station. They don't even know if anything's wrong. It's only at that last second when Luke looks down and Rob follows his gaze and they see her on the floor that as soon as they burst in, Luke just immediately goes around a corner and hides. Um, and so I think that most people know about fight, flight, freeze. There's a fourth one that people talk a lot more about now that's fawn. There's a whole bunch, actually, others that they're trying to develop as well to be kind of normal limbic system, amygdala responses to stress. Um, but I always think that it's really interesting because you think that you know what kind of response you're going to have until you're in a situation. If people know me real life, I'm super easy go lucky, and so I guess I always thought that I would have a flight response. But then I worked in a psychiatric facility. I was floor staff. We would routinely get attacked by clients who were there. And the first time one of my coworkers was attacked, I was on the attacker so quick and had them in a therapeutic hold that I kind of blinked and went, wait, how did I get here? I'm so confused. So it's almost like a mindless response. I don't think it's that easy, but it is super quick sometimes when you go into that response. So, especially here, I think it's interesting because Luke does the flight. He immediately, whoop, I'm going around a corner, I'm going to hide. And Rob does freeze. Like, if you watch the movie, you think it's kind of like, why isn't he moving? Why isn't he doing anything? But I think he's kind of in this sense of shock. He's just like, what? Huh? What's happening? I'm so confused. And you can see that Luke repeatedly, like, he kind of squeezes the bottle and wants to get up and he wants to help Rob so bad. But that response is really holding him back. It will not let him move. I think when I was learning about all the limbic system responses and things like that, my supervisor was telling us about fawn wasn't part of it. And I'll go into fawn here in a second just for the education purpose. But with the fight, flight, and freeze, she said, this all came from our ancestors that we fight the saber-toothed tiger, we run from the saber-toothed tiger, or the freeze is, oh, the saber-toothed tiger got us, so now we're just going to disassociate and not really be in our bodies so that we don't feel how painful it is that it's chewing on our leg. So again, the freeze, you kind of look at people and you're like, what are you doing? God, you're so dumb, move. brain literally is like, "Oh, I'm watching a movie. Oh crap, no, I'm not. I'm in my too late. I'm in trouble." Um, so I just think it's always interesting when you watch horror movies and you're like, "Oh my god, run! What's wrong with you?" There's actually some scientific stuff there that's going on that keeps people in place. And like I said, Fawn, I don't want to say it's newer. It's been around a while. I don't see it in horror movies that often, but Fawn is when you have people who are in like a high risk situation and the attacker tells them, "Okay, you need to do this. Like, hey, get in the car and drive." Yeah, you shouldn't do that. And FYI, real life, never ever leave a scene if you can help it. Like crash the car, do something. But your brain goes, "Okay, nope, if I agree with them, I'll stay safe. If I agree with them, I'll stay safe." And can really get you in some bad situations. And then those people a lot of times feel guilty because they quote unquote let it happen. But it really is just a brain response of like, "Nope, I agree. Nope, I agree. Please don't hurt me. I will agree to whatever you say." Um, but what I think is really interesting, kind of going back after the limbic system response, is your two ruffians. Is you have one guy who's actually very just calm. Let's get in, let's get out. I don't want any trouble. And then you have the guy who ends up killing Rob. That, to be perfectly honest, either he's in his fight where he's like, "Okay, nope, nope, nope. I'm gonna kill something. I've got all this adrenaline pumping." Or I wondered if he might have been tweaking on something, but they never actually state in the movie what was happening. But yeah, long-winded, I apologize, but again, this is what this show is, guys. I am a super nerd.
Well, that is what we are here for. So yeah, Luke hides and Rob is Rob. They steal from him his wallet, his watch. Then they demand his ring. Rob refuses because it's his wedding ring. Then the tweaker bashes him over the head with a metal bar, and Rob dies bleeding on the floor. And Luke watches the whole time. And yeah, then 6 months later, we jump to hey, Rob is dead, and the others have gone to Sweden in his stead.
Well, and actually, that transition I thought was really cool. And mind you guys, I have seen this movie a lot. I really liked this movie. But we rewatched it again to prepare for this and make sure that I had everything in order. But what's interesting is that we see, excuse me, going back to Rob's death, we see the first hit Rob, and he looks up at Luke and Luke is looking at him, and we actually don't see the second hit. You think you do. You think you do, but you don't because Luke looks away. And once that scene is over and we get to Sweden, Luke wakes up and is in his tent. So technically that entire framing device that we had about what happened to Rob and to get us kind of caught up to the present was a PTSD nightmare. He's reliving the event, he's reliving the horror of the event. So when we don't see that second hit, it's probably because Luke didn't see it either. He probably turned away right when he saw it coming to try and save himself from that. But yeah, I always thought that that was an interesting part there. Again, the guilt that Luke feels about everything that happened. Having the PTSD nightmares, I would wonder, obviously, if he has sought professional help for that, but probably not. We never know in the movie. Um, I also thought it was really interesting that it said 6 months later. And again, guys, I've been doing this for a really long time. It used to be. I say used to be. It is definitely different now. And to be honest, people who have been in these circles have never agreed with it. But like when I was in college going through the grief and loss and all of that sort of stuff in my education, it was considered that if you were still having a lot of difficulty after the death of a loved one, in 6 months, you had 6 months to get over them. And if you were still having issues after 6 months, you were in what they called complicated grief. Now, there are a lot of studies that show that there is a huge reduction in symptoms by 6 months for most people. A lot less crying. They're able to integrate into society a lot more. They're able to do the things that they need to do. So yeah, 6 months is kind of an important marker. Um, but really it wasn't until they did the DSM-5, which DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. That is our Bible. Every criteria for mental illness or mental health conditions is in there. We don't just diagnose people because we feel it. We have to have a whole list of things you have to meet. But the DSM-5 TR, so TR stands for Text Revised, came out in 2022. And that's when they actually put on in the book. Sorry, guys. I had bronchitis a few months ago, and it just has lingered a cough. It's awful. But it wasn't until 2022 that they actually put some diagnosis onto what complicated grief looked like. And they're starting to call it prolonged grief disorder. So what they have for prolonged grief disorder is you have to have lost somebody 12 months ago. If you're a teen or a kid, it's 6 months ago. And then you have to have longing, yearning, and preoccupation with the deceased. And then there's criteria that it's 8 criteria here, but you have to have at least 3 for almost every day for the last month. Identity disruption, which is like, oh my gosh, who am I without this person? So if you lose a spouse, it's like, well, no, I used to be Joe's wife. Now who am I? I have no idea. Disbelief about the death. I think that's self-explanatory. No, that didn't happen. That's not true. Avoidance of reminders that the person is dead. I actually cannot tell you how many people, when I did hospice, would avoid going into like a closet or things like that because they did not want to have a reminder that the person was gone. Intense emotional pain, difficulty reintegrating into life, emotional numbness, feeling that life is meaningless, intense loneliness, or sense of detachment from others. Now, it is important to, and again, I say this is not a diagnostic tool because there are a lot of things that you're like, oh, that sounds like me. Very, very similar diagnoses with this that go with like major depressive disorder, but major depressive disorder, you wouldn't have that death element. I also think that it's interesting too. The bereavement disorder is specifically for death, but when you look at the stages of grief, and I have to tell a lot of my clients, I'm like, look, grief is not just death. Grief is loss. You get fired, you go through a breakup, you have a car that's stolen. I don't know, but you lose something in your life. That's grief. Your team loses a game. You go through grief. Now, I don't think it's going to be super prolonged and have an impact on your life in a way that would create criteria for a diagnosis, but grief is not always death. It is for this movie, so that's kind of what I'm going to focus on. But yeah, it used to be 6 months. If you were still having issues after 6 months, you were considered in complex grief. Again, though, that wasn't ever specifically written. That was just kind of a guideline that people had. But those of us who work in grief, death, dying, all of that stuff, we're like, yeah, no, there is no timeline. It's different for everybody. Which was definitely true in my experiences.
All right. So, gang has gotten together. This is a memorial trip for Rob. So this is why they're here. They get to a designated spot. It's, like this cool little plateau. There's like this rock formation. They put up a little memorial for Rob. They set up tents, camp. Then a storm hits, and so they have to leave. Well, not a storm, just rain. It makes the goings a little difficult, so they're heading back the way they came. But Dom slips in a hole and bangs himself up, and he slows their trek. So, in order to save time, Hutch decides that they should take a shortcut through the woods. It should cut their time in half, assuming that nothing untoward happens.
And why would that happen in a horror movie? I don't know what you're expecting here, man.
So they get into the woods, and they get lost. And night begins to fall, and they actually thought they'd be back to the lodge by now, and nope.
Well, didn't you say that this movie was not filmed in Sweden? Where do you remember where it was actually
Okay,
made?
yeah. So getting to that, so I did. I looked it up, and I did a whole ton of looking up the actual photos. So fun, music aside, for anyone who doesn't know anything about Sweden or anything like that. So this supposedly takes place in a place called the King's Trail. That is a real place in Sweden. There are no forests in the Laplands of Sweden. There are trees, but not forests. But they are birch trees. They are not the coniferous trees that you see here. Where this was filmed was in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania. So yeah, that's different. Uh, do you want to know what the Laplands of Sweden look like?
I'm gonna guess flat, flat, flat.
Well, yeah. Remember the movie Sisu?
Yes.
Yeah, that was filmed in the Laplands of Finland, which are a little different but very similar. So picture that. That is what the King's Trail looks like. I looked it up online. They had all kinds of touristy photos. It was cool. But yeah, that was what that reminded me of.
Got it.
So
Just because we were. Oh, go ahead.
no, like that. This forest that you see here. Yeah, this is not in Sweden, but this is what they did for their movie.
I mean, it does work to an extent, especially if you've ever been to like some of those countries that are further north, or heck, if you've even been to Canada or Alaska, like that kind of dreariness and the wetness and like so Dom slipping and screwing up his knee and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, that could definitely happen. Um, but I don't know. I also think it's really interesting too that if you've ever been in a forest and you don't have a trail and you don't have trail markers, good luck. Uh, there's a reason why they say if you're ever lost in the woods, just stay still. It is so easy to get lost. It is so easy to go in circles. But I think that's where I first started to see that Hutch was the symbolism for denial because they're going in the forest. Do you know where you're going? Yep. Even though he looks at his compass and it's not working. Like he even kind of like taps it and is like, this way, let's go. So yeah, not surprising at all. Oh, yeah, let's cut through the woods. It'll be faster. And no, you guys don't know what you're doing.
Well, it is actually pointed out, I think, by Dom later on that if it's not a shortcut, as if it were a shortcut, it would be a route.
Which is funny because he actually is one of the people who's like, yes, yes, my leg hurts. I think we should go this way. Which is also really silly to me. But again, we would have no plot in this movie because they say, oh, if we don't check in with the lodge at this point, they're going to send people after us. So why did you go through? I know you guys thought it was faster, but God, that's dumb.
All right, so night falls. They need a place to sleep. There is discussion of putting up tents, but they continue on and find an interesting little lodge. Looks old and decrepit. They force their way in, and inside, it's dusty and musty. Looks like it'd be a decent place to stay until they go upstairs and find a room that's like a like a ritual room. It's an altar. There's this creepy man-shaped figure that's headless and has antlers for hands. And originally I thought they were like bird feet, but it actually turns out they're hands for feet. Yep, and they're creeped out immediately. Phil is like, oh, witchcraft! Oh my god, holy crap, scary! But they've got nowhere else to stay, so they do decide to sleep downstairs. Then we get one of the most interesting lines that you decided to point out in the movie from Phil that you think says a lot about his character.
Which line was that? Was that the like, I'll pay you to go upstairs and sleep in that room or something like that?
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah, because again, so when people think about bargaining in stages of grief and stuff like that, they think about like, okay, God, if you save this person or if you bring this person back, I'll go to church more, or hey, if this, I'll donate to charities if you allow this to happen. But bargaining is also sometimes the, oh my gosh, if I had just waited 10 more minutes, then I wouldn't have gotten in this car accident. Or kind of like what Phil does, like, hey, I'll pay you $100 to go upstairs. Oh my gosh, if I just hadn't gone upstairs, this wouldn't have happened, sort of thing. So bargaining is a little bit more complex. I don't think it's really that hard to understand, but I don't think people expand on it enough. But yeah, that was one of the first signs I'm like, see, that's why I think he's bargaining. Um, but I also think that it's interesting. I think it's happened at this point. It might happen here right at the next part. But like when they were going through the forest and like they first enter until they get to this place, there is no noise. And they make a comment about it, and of course Hutch is like, "Oh no, it's fine," because Hutch is denial. But when they get in this house is when they start, well, okay, Luke starts to hear some things. I think he says something to Hutch, and he's like, "Oh no, I don't hear anything. No, you're crazy." Da da da. But I do think that it's interesting that I think the house is kind of what starts a lot of the big issues for him.
Yep, you're right, because it's right after Luke, and I think he gets Phil to help him, bash in the door, start looking around. Dom then, piles in behind them. Luke he was iffy about going in at all, so he turns around, looks out into the forest, and he can hear something. He waves his flashlight around, doesn't see anything, and everyone's like, "It's raining, get in here, blah." But they bed down. They got their sleeping bags in the living room area of his house. They actually smashed up some chairs in order to start a fire in the fireplace. Then they go to sleep, and the night does not go well. They all have nightmares, and Luke's is interesting because you see him. He's sleeping on the floor. He's in his bag, and then all of a sudden he's just bathed in light. And he opens the front door, and it is the shop where the ruffians and Rob.
Which at that point, it's just the shop, right? Like he's not actually having the PTSD flashbacks at that moment. It's just the shop.
Yeah, I think at this point, I don't. He does not see Rob again. I think there's. I think he hears like a mixture of monster noises, and there's the droning of the lights. I think he hears like hollow, distant the events that happened that night, and then he startles awake and he's standing outside. Outside the house. He's in the woods.
Well, and then that's the part too that I think gets interesting is not only does he startle awake, but he has a wound on his chest. Right? And it's 4 puncture wounds? 5 puncture wounds? The puncture wounds. There's a few of them. I just can't tell you the exact number.
I think it's actually 6 because it makes the symbol.
Okay. Which we'll go into that when it comes up. But he has the puncture wounds, which I think is partly what wakes him up, but they are super, super fresh because they actually start bleeding almost immediately. And I have a theory because he then goes into the house and people are screaming in their sleep or whatever they're doing and all that's happening. But I have a theory that all of the nightmares that they have, every single one of them has a nightmare. It's not just Luke, it's all of them. But I have a theory that they either were being kind of probed to see who was living with the biggest amount of grief, or they were maybe even seeing their death. Because, like, Hutch specifically urinates on himself. Like, he's kind of embarrassed for half a second, and then he's just like, yeah, nope, that was a really crappy dream. Dom is yelling for his wife, which, again, that is a thing that we'll talk about when we get to that part. And then they actually find Phil, and again, this is the part that I also was like, oh, see, bargaining. He is up in the room with the idol, completely naked, bowing to it, worshiping to it, and he's kind of like got his hand like around one hand around his wrist, and he's like in this gesture of like worship, or I thought it actually looked more like begging for his life. So again, bargaining, please let me live, please let me go. He doesn't know how he got up there though. He's just like, I woke up and this is where I am. But there's a big theory, and I say big theory, huge, huge theory that dreams are our subconscious trying to heal itself. If you've ever heard of EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization or reprocessing, that bilateral stimulation is reminiscent of REM sleep when your eyes go back and forth. So we're trying to choose a memory and heal it versus dreams. Your brain just goes, "Huh, well, wouldn't this be cool to explore in this abstract way and give you nightmares all night?" Because your brain's a jerk. Um, so yeah, I think that that was the Moder is the god thing that we're gonna come up on. But I think that that was him like probing to see, like, hey, are any of these guys dealing with grief and loss? And could I use any of these guys? And the mark is symbolic on Luke to say, yep, you're the one. Tag, you're it.
So yeah, as a note, I think Hutch's is the only dream we do not learn anything about. He just kind of says, "Oh, that sucked." Dom, we do get the thing calling to his wife, and then he elaborates on it later. And Phil, once shit hits the fan, reveals that he saw the thing and he didn't want to believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so the idea that Motor is probing them is absolutely valid, with a bit of precognition mixed in.
And again, I think that it's the entire reason that grief is hard is because it hurts. And so to kind of almost stir the pot and see what comes up and see if I can instigate this and see what happens, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Um, so yeah, that's why I think it was a lot of precognition, or he was the Motor. He was projecting things into their brain. But I think he needed to see exactly what they had been through, which is why we get the supermarket liquor store thing. Reminds me of a bodega that you have in New York, but I think they're in London, so I don't know if they go by bodegas there too. So yeah, I thought that was so interesting to see that they all are traumatized, because again, they're all representing these different stages, but they're all technically going through the same thing.
But the discussion of the nightmares continues, because they continue on their way, and Phil keeps going on about how he wouldn't have done that. That's not him. He does not worship that kind of thing. And Hutch is intent on shutting him down and tell him to shut up.
Denial and bargaining, denial and bargaining. I wouldn't have done that. I couldn't have done that. That's your bargaining and shutting up, right?
Yeah. But as they're making their way through the woods, we're getting a little bit of wide shots, kind of something watching them from a safe distance. We're getting occasional subtle monster noises. They are being watched.
Really interesting to me, and I think that I don't know, that's one of those things in movies, especially horror movies, that I don't think people talk enough about is the cinematography. If anybody here has seen Haunting of Hill House, I'm sure everybody's heard of this by now. The like random ghosts that are in the background has nothing to do with the storyline whatsoever, but it keeps you on edge. It keeps you on your toes. It's like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? And I think a lot of times in this movie, you are at wide shots, you are in the background, and I think that it's a lot of, oh, okay, something's watching them, and then you'll see the monster. And so it's, oh no, wait, we're watching them, but why at this angle? And I think it kind of reflects on things that when you have somebody who's grieving and you're an outsider looking in, it's like, okay, yep, I can look, there's a you need to get out of the house. You need to do this. Like you can't just sit here the whole time. Here, let me help you. Let me help you. And the other people can't see that. They don't understand why you want them to do a certain thing or why you're saying a certain thing. Um, so that's where I kind of thought it was cool where we think it's like something's watching them, but then we'll see the thing. It's like, oh wait, we're watching them. We're like, look out, he's behind you, sort of thing. Um,
Yeah, but moving right along, they're lost. They're losing their shit. Dom's being a ball and chain. Um, and Luke is starting to lose it, and he decides to share the whole thing with, "Hey, I woke up with this. There's something out here," and Dom is not hearing it.
well, and again, Dom, one, he loses it, saying, like, oh well, you did that to yourself, blah 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 blah. But again, with the anger, he's lashing out at Luke a lot, and blames Luke for Rob's death, which I get where he's coming from, but also not valid, right? Like the the guys robbing the store were the ones who killed Rob. It was not Luke. Like, yes, he was there, but that doesn't mean anything. So I do understand that's a big part of anger, is specifically blaming people for things that's out of their control. What I think is interesting in this confrontation too, though, is Dom starts saying, oh no, you did that to yourself. You did this, blah blah blah. All the blame is on Luke, but Hutch keeps. I mean, you can see even in this photo right here how Hutch is trying to kind of get in between the two, but Hutch is trying to shut him down to say, hey guys, don't fight, stop fighting. And then Dom does accuse Luke. He's like, you were there. I don't understand how, you came out without a scratch and he was in there dead. And you see Hutch roll his eyes, kind of like, oh, God, why did he say that? So to me, sorry guys, to me, this is a conversation that's probably been had before without Luke around. They've probably had the conversation of, well, why did Luke not get hurt? What did Luke do? Could Luke have done something more? But again, Hutch is trying to keep the peace. It's just Dom is finally kind of letting it all out, letting the anger loose. And I also think it's a normal reaction because Luke turns around and he's like, you know what? You're not my friend. If you could ever think that this was my fault and accuse me of these things, like, I'm not speaking to you again. Like, go away. Um, but I think that shows just how grief can tear things apart sometimes. Like, if you're not being careful with it, you can lash out at others, you can accuse others, you can break down relationships just because it feels safe in that moment.
And for those wondering, yeah, Luke does deck Dom. Like, Dom gets a bloody nose. Luke has to go away to cool off. Hutch tries to, shut it down, cool the mood, whatever. But then we continue on. Due to Dom being the ball and chain that he is, they're not making good time, and the fact that they're lost is, yeah. So night falls, and Hutch has a proposition for Luke.
So again, it's so interesting to me, and the psychotherapist part of me, I'm like, wait, what happened? Let's do a group therapy session. Let's talk through how often have you guys had these discussions without Luke present? But it sounds like Hutch is saying, hey, we're not going to get out of here very easily. Dom is hurt. It's getting worse. Why don't you go ahead, get us help, and come back? Right? And it makes sense. That is what he should, hey, you guys stay here. We're going to get help. Well, it's just easier that way. But I find it so interesting that it comes up after that fight with Dom. And I think that Hutch just thinks, you know what? Luke is the instigator here. Luke is the problem. Let's send Luke away. Let's get him out of here. Let's just diffuse the entire situation by kicking him out. And again, if you know anything about survival tactics and stuff like that, yeah, it makes sense kind of what he's saying, but you don't send people out by themselves. So really, if he cared about this, I think he would have gone with Luke himself, or at least sent Phil with Luke. But I think he's literally like, hey, you know what? You're the kind of catalyst here with these arguments. You're the problem. Get out. But he doesn't say it in that way. Because again, he's denial. He's trying to be nice. He's trying to be diplomatic about it. But I do find it interesting that it's like, nope, let's go. Nope, get him out of here. let's get rid of the problem. But again, that's blaming somebody who really, again, did not have any cause in what happened.
And Luke seems to agree. It seems decided that at first light, Luke is going to head out. It's a damn shame they don't get that far because, yeah, in the middle of the night, there are noises, and then Hutch is gone. And Luke wakes everyone up, and they hear Hutch's screaming and monster noises, and they go running around looking for him. And Luke is leading the charge, and Dom is getting scared, and Dom's just turning back, despite the fact that they can still hear the occasional scream coming from Hutch.
Also, despite the fact that part of the accusations he has against Luke in that previous argument is you should have fought, you should have done this, you should have done that. Guys, I am telling you right now, you can think, oh, well, if I were in that situation, I would have blah, 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 blah. Yeah, until you're in that situation, you do not know how you're going to react. Man, I am so sorry. But I do think, he talks about you should have fought, you should have gone after him, you should have protected him. But the second that the three of them are in danger, they hear Hutch screaming. They are trying to find him. Dom is like, no, we can't. We're going to get hurt. We have to stop. We can't go. Again, rational thought. But for him to say, nope, we need to wait and keep ourselves safe, and then tell Luke that he shouldn't have done that with what happened with Rob, just shows how much you can think, hey, you know what? I would never do that in this situation. I would never, yeah, get in those situations and let me know how you do. Okay, don't get in those situations because then you will probably need therapy, which if you don't already, I don't want to put you in that situation. But again, once you're in those situations, I think everything you've had planned can sometimes go out the window.
Well, they do wind up turning back. They do not find Hutch. They camp until morning. They go looking, and they find Hutch's body suspended in a tree, disemboweled.
And I think it's all.
And what's worse is that seemingly when they find him, he was probably still alive because as they're moaning and trying to keep their breakfast down, the body actually looks over directly at Luke.
Well, and see, I don't know if he was still technically alive because, like, earlier in the movie, they come across a fresh kill and they make the comment, like, oh god, it is still bleeding. That means it was recent. We need to get out of here before whatever killed this thing comes back. I think that, again, that's that manifestation of guilt. Like, I don't think that he was alive and then looks over at Luke. I think Luke just didn't perceive the direction of his face at first. And then when he's like, oh my god, I didn't save him. I didn't go after him like I should have. And again, the screaming and the night thing that happens, it's like you can tell he's hurt. You can tell something's wrong. But you can hear the difference in his scream when he's killed. Like you can hear the pain and the anguish and they know what happened. They know that they're not going to find him alive. But I think Luke is driven by guilt to go, "Oh my god, he's looking at me." I don't actually think he was alive, but god, that would have sucked if he was.
Yeah, so the party is down one more, and they have to continue on. They actually seemingly did not find their way back to their tents because they are sans all their supplies. So they get Hutch's body down. They get his gear. Discover the compass is not working, and they have to continue on. And as they go, having to stop frequently because of Dom's leg, Phil offers up theories on the creature and what's happening.
Yeah, again, the bargaining, the whole, oh, we shouldn't have gone to the forest. Oh, we shouldn't have done this. If we had only stayed home, if we had done, if only, I shoulda, I woulda, I coulda. Again, very much the bargaining phase. And yeah, Hutch also dying too. I just want to say, denial is the first stage of grief. So him going out first makes sense. So spoiler alert, who's going to go out second? But no, he keeps having theories about, what this is and how they can avoid it. And we should have burned that house down. That's the only way that we could have kept ourselves safe because we had prayed to it. Now it's following us. And lots of bargaining that he's going through with the grief of the situation. Right now, they've lost their new friend, and really, they've lost their sense of safety.
All right, so Dom and Phil are starting to lose it. Luke, yeah, he's set. We're going to continue the direction Hutch said. I have a knife to defend us with. Let's keep going. Let's stop moping. Let's not lose our heads. Let's do this.
Which, that I think is really, really important. And we talk about communication styles with people. We use different animals with it, and really I think it makes sense with the other two, but the middle one. You have passive communication, which is you just agree with everything somebody else says, and that's the turtle. You hide in your shell, you don't argue, you just go with it. Then you have the other far end, which is aggressive communication, which is what we had earlier when Dom was accusing Luke of not being brave and he was the cause of Rob dying, and that's symbolized by a lion. And I talk to a lot of my clients about how, you start yelling at somebody and then they start yelling at you, and it's two lions just roar, 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 roar. If you want to get anywhere in a conversation, or especially in a crisis situation, you want to go with what we call assertive communication. And they have an owl as the symbol because it's supposed to be wisdom and that sort of thing. But when you do assertive communication, it is being direct. It's not ordering or bossing somebody around necessarily. But a lot of times it's like, look, I feel this. I need this. We need to this. But when you're in crisis, and I can tell you with a lot of the things that I've had to handle, you either give somebody two choices or you don't give them any choice. Hey, we are going to take a breath. We are going to move forward, and we are going to get out of these woods. That, yeah, guys, I know it's hard, but what, do you want to sit and wait? Do you want to do this? No. Crisis situations, get off your butt. Let's go. We have to do this. But again, I think that that's starting to show a bit of Luke coming out of his grief, guilt, shame part, because he's like, no, we're getting things done. I am not losing another friend. I am getting everybody out of here. Let's go. Which again, the very beginning of the movie, he's so avoidant. He's not really, he's part of the group, but he's going out and having the cigarettes and staying kind of on the, like, literally on the edge of the camp. Like, there's, I think, 3 different scenes where they're all near a fire and they look over and he's farther away from them. So this is him actually finally taking the action. But again, I thought it was a really good, it wasn't, hey, you guys stop, shut up and get moving. You guys are slowing us down. You're this, it's like, no, we are doing this. We will keep moving. We are going to get out of here. Definitely has a different response than if he were to be accusing them or calling them out on negative behaviors. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Oh, yes, his character arc is in full swing. But
like he's the main character or something, whatever.
Hey, writing. Anyway, so moving on from here, we get a lot of traveling. They see some stuff. They see evidence that there's more habitation nearby. But more importantly, we get another one of those kind of wide shots of them going through the woods. And then the woods move. So we see them on the left there going up the hill. Yeah, that kind of white swatch that's kind of like to the right of center. Yeah, you can see the monster there. And it's I don't have a video, unfortunately, but it's motionless the entire time they're going up to the hill until they reach this point, and that thing moves. And it's like, and you actually get a decent look at it. It's just that it's so far away you don't get detail, but it's like you get the idea of how big it is, and horns and big head and big legs. And yeah, so they know the monster's out there. We get to see the monster, and it's like this was a really cool shot. I'm
And see,
one last bit. I'm told there's actually, I think, at least 2 other scenes in the movie where you can see the monster in the background where it doesn't move. It's just standing there watching. I couldn't find them, but I was going through the movie pretty quick to get these shots. So maybe if I look better, I don't know.
and then there's one scene earlier because it's before Hutch dies where Luke goes up ahead to kind of scout and you see like a hand. It's super cool scene. It's one of the first times that you're like, oh my god, what is out here? But this is one of those shots that I was talking about where it's like you're watching them climb up and you're like, oh, we must be looking at this from the point of view of the monster. We must be, and then you see the monster move and it's like, oh god, no, wait, we're here with them and we're looking from a different, oh, this is not good. This is not good at all. Um, but again, putting that uneasiness, and I'm actually really interested to go back and see if I can find those other 2 spots to see if you can see them. Um, what I also think is cool, and we will definitely get to it, which is the design of the monster. If you've seen the movie before, when this scene comes up, it's like, oh man, you can see everything. You know exactly what you're looking at. If you have not seen this movie before and it moves, you're like, wait, what? I'm so confused. What are we looking? I don't understand. So yeah, very, very cool scene. Very much appreciate how the cinematography is done in a lot of these scenes.
Oh yeah, it is good. It blends in with the trees, and it actually, in this very next scene, takes advantage of that because they wander. They're not finding their way out. Another night falls, and I believe what happens first is that Luke, Dom and Phil are still losing it. So Luke is like, "Hey, sit here. I'm going to go up that hill. I'm going to see what I can see." And he actually sees like the edge of the forest, and he sees the lodge that they're trying to head to just beyond. And then he looks to the side and sees that there's like campfires burning, and like so there's some kind of camp nearby? Question mark. But he goes back to them. Um, to tell them what he saw. Unfortunately, he finds Phil kind of wandering around with his light, and then he turns away. And I tried to take the screenshot right as the creature grabs him. You can see its arms over his shoulder on the left there. He is looking the opposite direction. It grabs Phil and drags him off into the woods, screaming.
Which again, second stage is bargaining, so 2 stages down, 3 more to go. But what I think is also interesting is it's almost like lanterns on a path is what he sees versus like campfires, like lighted pathways. But when they go to the house in the very, very beginning, we saw some of those too. They just weren't. So it kind of makes me think that they've been not our group, but the people who are in the forest have actually been here for such a long time, which they do find a camp at one point that has the camp's been destroyed. They find, I think, a was it 1980 something or other ID. Um, but I think that the people who live here actually travel a lot trying to stay out of Motor's way, which I don't know. Like, yay, we found ones that work, and then Phil gets taken.
But yeah, so it gets it grabs Phil, carries him off screaming. Um, they try to chase after him. That doesn't work, and then it's the creature starts chasing them. So Dom and Luke is helping Dom because Dom is still limping. The creature is seemingly running circles around them. They're running away, and they actually make it kind of towards that camp. They reach a pathway that is lit by torches on stumps. But then they stop to take a breath. Luke looks up and sees Phil's body just hanging there, still fresh and bleeding.
Because again, I think Motor's a jerk. He likes to taunt them. He likes to make sure that they see what he can do. But again, it's instigating grief. Now it's not just, oh, Phil is gone, let's go try to rescue him and have hope. Nope, Phil's dead. That sucks. Now we're grieving another friend. Like, I think that's why he makes sure that they're in spots that you can see them.
So they make their way down the path. They see this log cabin. The door opens. They go in, close it behind them because they felt like the creature was chasing them. They see a guy kneeling in prayer. They're trying to get this dude's attention, and then they're jumped and knocked out. They wake up in a cell, a wooden cell. They're both chained to opposing walls. Dom is in not too good a shape. Luke, he does that thing where you're poking at like the seams and the logs. He forces dirt out of the way to where he can see outside, and he sees like people chopping wood and seemingly constructing something. Then they are visited. People come in, chiefly a very not very old, 60s, 70s, maybe, I don't know, kind of a crony lady. She's chewing something as she kind of waddles up to them. She kind of, I don't know, passes over Dom and goes to Luke. Offers Luke water. He takes it. Then she examines him, pulls down his shirt, and sees his wound from the creature. And then she lowers part of her shirt to show that she has the exact same mark.
Yeah, except for hers is like rotting, necrotic flesh. Like, I know, again, I feel like the entire symbolism of the mark of motor is grief and people living in grief, and specifically the sadness part of grief, because I think that's, again, scientifically not necessarily true, but when you think about grief, it's the sadness part that lingers usually the longest. Denial's pretty quick. Bargaining can take a bit. Anger and sadness, though, stick around for a long time. So her showing the wound and the fact that it's literally looks like her skin is starting to decay off and it's gotten infected. It's gross. It's gnarly looking. But to me, that is the, hey, we recognize that you're in this grief stage of sadness. We are too, but it's literally eating us alive, like rotting us out from the inside out. And I guess important thing that I should probably say here that didn't think about. Yeah, I'm talking about denial is the first stage, bargaining is the second stage, then anger, then sadness. These are not linear. Usually they're not linear. It's very odd for them to be linear. So yeah, I say that they're dying in order, but just because of what order they're presented in and the theory, it is very common to be like denial, anger, sadness, bargaining, sadness, anger, sadness, bargaining, denial, anger. Like, it's very common to bounce around, and it's also very common to just skip some of the steps. But most people will be in them for just a quick second.
Yep. So the fun fact about this is that their captors are not talking to them because Luke is questioning like everything this woman does, but she doesn't say a word. She's just chewing whatever it is she has. Leaves, does not give any water to Dom. I don't think it was right away, but I think Luke and Dom sit around and talk for a while, and then people come in and just unchain Dom and drag him outside. Take him upstairs. Luke can hear not only Dom screaming from getting the shit beat out of him, but he can hear chanting, and it's very ominous. Then Dom is dragged back inside to be with him, and Dom shares some details he did not offer earlier.
Yeah. So, and did they beat the crap? I know he didn't look that great, but I thought he looked more in shock when he came back. But you can. I know you probably have scoured this too, so.
No, he's bloodied. They beat him up. It's like, I mean, he's still bloodied when they wind up taking him outside too.
Yeah. Okay. I thought that he was bloody before they took him up. But okay, anyway, but yeah, no, and this is where I think that we start to also get into that acceptance phase because Dom starts, telling him that he saw this coming, that was part of the dream that he had, and that when Luke gets out, he's like, I'm not going to make it. I know I'm going to die, but I need you to tell my wife that I love her. I want you to tell her all of these things. Of course, Luke is doing what I think most people do. No, man, you're going to get out of here. We're going to make it. But Dom, I think, has moved into that acceptance phase. And I think that him also going through a lot of what he says to Luke, he also kind of starts to offer up forgiveness to Luke. And again, I really don't feel like Luke could have changed much. I think that if he had jumped out at the robbers, that they would have just killed him too. But I think that it really did hurt him for his friends to think that he was responsible. So for Dom to be talking about all this and saying, hey, you know what? You need to survive. You need to do this. Please give this message to my wife. You have to let people know, is that sense of forgiveness that he needed from his friends.
Yeah. Well, Luke is trying to comfort him. Dom is convinced he's seen his fate. He knows what's coming for him. Then night falls, and the people come in to drag Dom outside. The thing they were working on earlier was a post with which to fit Dom to. They tie him to it, and as he, Luke is watching this through the little hole he's made. He's decided that he needs to get out and help them, and but first he is visited by a woman. She comes to, apparently, I'm guessing she's the only one in town who speaks English, to sort of bring Luke in on what's happening. She tells him about the creature. One, they do not say its name. It is a child of Loki. It is a Jotun. They have worshipped it for a long time. It gives them eternal life. And the key phrase here being that there is no more pain, no more death.
Yeah, because I think that that's a really interesting phrase, because one of the characteristics of like depression and sadness and that sort of stuff is almost this feeling of numbness. Like, I don't feel anything. I am here. I exist, but I don't feel joy. I don't feel anger. I don't feel anything at all that will make me feel better. And I think that it's also important too, is that, the entire movie, it's called The Ritual. And so when we see them getting ready to take Dom, we see them building everything, we see all of that. We assume that the ritual is what they're doing to Dom. But she does tell Luke, like, nope, once this is done, the ritual is for you. The ritual is for you to join us and for you to be part of our group because you have been marked by Moder. So I do think that it's really, really interesting for her to say that, hey, you're the one who's joining us and you're going to do this and you're going to do this. And yeah, no more pain, no more death. But yeah, nobody in this village seems happy. Everybody looks like they are in a miserable state. And just, I mean, granted, I hate the cold. So if I were stuck there too, I'd probably be miserable. But I do find that interesting. And again, there's something coming up that we will discuss a little bit further, which I think also makes her words very specific and to be aware of.
And then once she departs, I believe he had already started the process and then kind of covered it up while she was in there. But Luke tries to get himself free, and he, in an amazing display of fortitude, dislocates his thumb in order to get his hand through the manacle and frees himself. Then he goes searching, through the complex he's in, because they have taken Dom outside and he needs to get outside, but he needs a weapon to deal with the stuff. He makes his way upstairs to where he heard the chanting and finds people from the village. They've got marks on their chests just like him. And though they're silent at first, once they notice him, they start rasping and chanting.
And just people from the village, like these are like mummies. Like it looks like he's kind of going into an area where they've been storing the dead. But like Nox just said, they start moaning, and they start chanting, and they start, and that to me is where that line, "No more pain, no more death." Cool. We have immortality, but we do not have eternal youth. They continue to age, but they cannot die. I actually wonder how many of these people at that point want to die, that they are literally just rotted, decayed husks of themselves, and they're forced to stay here and forced to stay with this group. And I do feel like the chanting is part of what they try to do to keep Motor at bay, like that it keeps them safe, it keeps them alive. But yeah, it just shows just how much, like, if you continue to live in your sorrow and your grief and you don't try to heal, this is again the metaphorical, it eats away at you and just rots you into nothing, but you still are here. And so I think that that's a scene that is really, really interesting to say, yep, nope, no more pain, no more death, but still gonna age and become horrible, just can't move because you're sitting here as a decayed husk. Like, ugh.
All right, and here's where things really start to pick up because first there's the death of Dom. He's taunting the cultists while he's on the post. He's been restrained. He's telling them to get on with it. What are you made of? And then his wife Gail steps out of the forest and asks what's going on. And Dom is shocked, and he's like tries to comfort her, and she runs up to embrace him, and blink and you miss it, and suddenly Gail is Motor, and Dom is screaming.
Well, and again, anger, right? Like, oh, why are you doing? I'm gonna kill you all, blah blah. Yeah, cool, dude. That's not actually gonna help you at all. But two, while he's sitting there and waiting for whatever's gonna happen, you can see what, maybe like 20 bodies, something like that, like all in the tree line. There are people who have basically been impaled on tree limbs, and then they're just left, like just left for everybody to see. And I think that, again, going back to what happened with Phil and Hutch, where they were left specifically in the path of Luke and Dom, that like Motor is probably taking people from the village and putting them on display there to almost keep the grief going. Like, okay, I'm gonna walk outside and, oh, look, there's my brother in a tree. Oh, it's all flooding back. Okay, this is a trigger or a memory point, so I'm constantly living in the grief. Um, so I think that that's interesting, and of course he impales Dom on one of those tree limbs too. But I think that Motor is able to impersonate Gale because he saw her in the dream. He knows what she looks like because of the memories that came up. So that's where when they have all the nightmares and everything happens, it's like, oh, he's probing them. He's looking for info. Um, which I don't know. I feel like that's so interesting when you talk about like ancient monsters and things like that. They don't always talk about how they can be strategic in their actions.
Yeah, and this sequence actually goes on for a while because Luke torches the mummies. He lights them on fire. You hear them screaming. Then he goes searching the complex for weapons because everyone's outside. He finds a there's one person who wasn't outside, and it was the old lady. So when he comes downstairs and she's right there in front of him, he just decks her and just lays her out.
I laugh so hard at that scene though,
Yep.
because it's just like they stare at each other. He's like, "Is she gonna scream? What's she gonna do?" And it's just right there, just knocks her out. And oh, sorry, I don't know why that makes me laugh so hard. Again, I probably shouldn't laugh at that, but I guess it kind of shows too that he's no longer in that flight or freeze or fawn mode. He's started to move into the fight mode. Um, But also during the time too, though, I think it's also important to note that the villagers are all bowing. They will not, their heads have to be down. They cannot keep eye contact. They're
Well,
worshiping.
that's kind of happening concurrently with this scene because Motor, after impaling Dom, the fire spreads, and it is displeased. These mummified worshippers are dying, and Motor seems to demand answers. And the woman who came to speak to Luke is looks up at Motor and seems to offer an explanation, and Motor does not seem to approve because it grabs her and she screams. And it's a little while before we see what becomes of that, because then we cut back to Luke, who is searching for weapons, and he actually finds a rifle, like a really nice rifle. It digs for shells, but it's very clear that he's not too familiar with guns, because a guy comes in and he doesn't speak English, seems to be trying to reason with Luke, likely because he thinks he should become one of them. Luke tries to shoot the guy, but this is a lever action rifle. He has not locked the lever in place properly. It clicks. The dude continues to advance towards him, pleading towards him. Luke jiggles the lever a bit more and then fires and kills the guy. Then he rounds the corner. He loads another shell in, sees another guy has made his way inside, but is not looking at Luke. He's looking at the front door, drops the axe he's carrying, and just drops into a worshipping full position. And Luke, not noticing whatever he's looking at, is like, you stay there, don't move. He reaches down to take the guy's axe, looks at the door, and that's where we see the legs of the woman just kind of dangling. And then she drops to the ground, and her eyes are gouged out. And too far. And then Motor leans down and creepily runs its hands along the door frame.
The scene was so cool. I remember the first time we saw that movie, and you want to talk about cool creature design, man? Like, Motor is just awesome looking how they made it.
We will get to that. Trust me, I have a lot about that.
Ugh. Well, and I don't know. I kind of have thought about why her eyes. And I mean, I think the simplest answer when you see her and her eyes have been gouged out is because she looked at him directly. But I don't know, man. I don't think that makes the most sense, especially with some events that kind of happen later. I don't know if it was just Motor was just mad about the cultists upstairs, or whatever you want to call them, the dead bodies upstairs being torched, and so he just took out his anger. But I don't know. That's something that I've always kind of been curious, is like, what exactly is the symbolism of the eyes?
The world may
Do you
never
have any
know.
ideas? There's a screenwriter somewhere who knows.
No, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure the monster designer and the director have some ideas. But the scene continues on. Luke flees back into the complex, tries to find a different exit. He does so and gets out into the woods, turns back and sees the complex ablaze, and Motor is once again carrying another body of one of the cultists. It seems to be meting out retribution on everyone for failing it. So he takes aim with the rifle and fires and hits Motor, and it drops the cultist it was holding and turns to look at him. And the super awesome money shot. This is awesome. Holy crap, look at that thing. So cool. But yeah, he just shot it with a rifle, and it's like, oh, you.
Sorry, but when that scene just and again too, right? When you talk about creepily his hands are on the door frame with that earlier scene, that's the part. And we had seen it when it was impersonating Gale. So it's not like it's the first time that we had seen its face. Huge finger quotations here, because yeah, if you see the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But it is one of those things where God, just the whole design. It's like this thing is definitely not human, but the way that they did everything, it's not even an animal either. Like I feel like you can watch some movies and it's like, oh, it's just a bear, or oh, it's just no, this is a monster. Um, but yeah, I do think it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you, and then of course we see the antlers with the hands and the you know headless body and all. So okay, hey, now we know exactly that was actually a pretty good depiction of what its head looks like for that altar there. Got it. Um, but oh, so cool.
Yep, but unfortunately, Luke is out of shells, so he ditches the rifle and runs, and Motor gives chase. And the forest around Luke seems to shift as fluorescent lights blink on overhead, and shelves of alcohol appear around him, and we are taken back to that bodega at the beginning of the film. But still parts of the forest are visible around, and you can hear Motor giving pursuit and circling around him, and then attacking him as he runs through the aisles. It's such a cool sequence as it's using its mind manipulation stuff offensively in order to disorient him.
I think too at that scene, and again, kind of what ends up happening next is if you look at the other villagers, I feel like they've been a buffet for him forever. And then you have Luke show up whose grief is so fresh, and then also his friends just died and all this stuff, so that's also fresh grief. Uh that he's almost like a ribeye steak that just showed up on the menu. And so Motor is definitely like, no, 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 no. I still want to take care of this. Like, you're important. But I think that's why he finds all the other cultists very, I know I keep saying cultists. That's probably not the right term, but it just makes sense to me. Um, but I think that that's why they're so dispensable to him, is because at this point, they're just numb and don't care anymore. But we've got Luke here who does still have grief and who does still have a lot of sadness and sorrow, and it wants to feed upon it.
Yep, and then we reach the point where if you haven't been paying attention to the movie, now it kind of beats you over the head with what is happening here as Motor catches him, and it does not kill him, it does not impale him on the tree, it forces him to the ground. Well, there was another cool money shot during the chase. I just had to take this picture because look at that. That is so cool. But it is forcing him to the ground and demanding he submit.
Right. And it's the, you know what, just stay there, stay down, don't get up, live in this grief, live as the worm you are. And again, the sadness part too is so much I don't want to say self-loathing, but there's a lot of negative self-talk. Some people do have some self-loathing in there. So again, be on the ground like the worm you are, worship me and do what I say, and I'll help you live forever and you'll have no more pain. Yeah, but I don't think I want the alternative either, dude. But of course, and this is where I think it's so interesting and why I said Luke is like the ribeye, is because we had the other lady who looked at Motor and picks her up and he kills her and then he starts killing everybody else. But Luke actually does stand up twice. And Motor pushes him back down, like, no, submit, no, submit. I need you. But that to me is the symbolism of, no, I have this strength and I need to get up and I need to keep going. Yes, I'm grieving. Yes, this sucks, but I gotta keep moving. I cannot stay down or this will eat me alive.
Yep. And he does, glare up at Motor as it's trying to form. It literally takes the stance of the idol, and he glares up at it, stands up, and it forces him down, and he looks to the side and sees the axe that he'd taken from the one guy, and he looks beyond it and he sees Rob.
Symbolism and acceptance. Again, part of the reason why I feel like Rob is the symbol of acceptance too is right at this end part of the movie where he could be frozen by his guilt, he could be frozen by his shame, or I am not letting this happen again. I am going to grow from this and I am going to fight. Also, I think too, a big part of that is like when we have people in our lives that die, they don't want to leave us. They're not wanting to be like, oh, cool. Hey, be sad. Be in sorrow all the time. Be mad at the world. Like their deaths are definitely something that they want you to move on and be happy. And we, they want you to grow. I've never met a person, and again, I did hospice and hospitals, and I have worked with people who are dying on multiple occasions. I never once had somebody tell their loved one, like, hey, make sure you're miserable until until you're gone too. Okay. Like nobody has ever said that. So I think that that's an important part with Rob being there too, is this is a moment where he can be like, you know what? No, Rob would want me to live.
Yeah. And so that he grasps the axe, stands up once more, and when Motor goes to grab him and try and force him to onto his knees on the ground again, he just buries that axe in the side of Motor's head. Um, it wails in pain, but he takes off. He runs, but Motor seems to recover. This you dealt a wound, but it's not really going to slow Motor down. However, Luke reaches the edge of the forest. He runs out into daylight, starts climbing up a hill, slips a little bit, and hears Motor coming up behind. Turns around and notices that Motor stops at the edge of the forest. And Motor is bellowing at him, so he bellows back.
And I cannot tell you how many times I have told clients, like, when you are in a moment with just intense adrenaline, or you're feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated or anxious, or just scream. Like, there are whole workshops where people do primal screaming, and I've heard a lot of people who are like, "Oh, man, I feel like my trauma has been cured by that." I'm like, "Ew, probably some of the stressors have been released. I really think you need to process that trauma, but hey, you know what? If you're feeling better, that is important." So I do think it is one of those things right there where he just screams at the guy, well, at the god, at the Jotun, at the whatever you call it. But he just lets all of that anger and grief and rage and everything out. Again, it might seem a little bit silly that he's screaming at a monster to some people, but to me, it's symbolizing the therapeutic release of all of the stress and discomfort and just everything that he's had built up. I mean, I still remember one day where I had a really rough day at work and my friend was over and Knox is like, "Hey, you okay?" And I said, "Nope." And then my friend is like, you need anything?" I'm like, "Absolutely not." And I just marched to my bedroom and I think both of them were freaked out because I am not that person. And I just screamed into a pillow. And so when I walked out of the bedroom, they're both standing there staring at me and I'm like, "It's fine, guys. I just needed to release it a little bit. I'm okay." But it is super therapeutic to just have some way to get it out of your system. And I think that that's what he does here. Um, but also interesting enough, and I think when you watch horror movies, right, you have that final scene and hey, is this gonna be a fake out death, or is this gonna, the guy's gonna jump up and you gotta do a double tap and blah blah blah. Motor is never destroyed. Yeah, he's hit with the axe. Yeah, he's got some damage done to him. He is still there in the forest waiting. So I again think that that's a really big thing of symbolism, and I talk with people who are grieving all the time that I'm like, "Look, you could be fine for 5 years and then you smell something that reminds you of that person, or you meet somebody who has a personality that reminds you of that person, or you hear a song and boom, you are right back in kind of that sadness and that sorrow and that grief, but it's temporary, right? And I feel like it's, if you can have the control and you know how to climb your way out of it, per se, right? Like climbing the hill here and climbing out of the forest, it does get easier. It doesn't go away. And that's the whole thing about grief is it's like, they say, oh, time heals. Time you learn coping skills and it doesn't sting as much. Um, there's this exercise, I don't know what you would call it, but kind of this metaphor that we give to people where it's like you have a room and there's a button that is your grief. And when a person first passes away, there's a ball in the room that is about the size of the room. So it's constantly hitting that button. But as time moves on, that ball gets smaller and smaller, and that grief button doesn't get hit as often, but it can still get hit. So yeah, I just think it's interesting. The whole he screams and he's, triumphant over the creature, definitely. But I see that more as a therapeutic release of his feelings and his stress and everything that he's been through. And that motor's still there and he knows he's still there.
And Luke gets away, and day dawns, and credits roll.
So no, I absolutely love this movie because of all those metaphors. Like, oh, so good.
Yep. And it's we loved it the first time we saw it. We've watched it a handful of times since then. And when I floated the idea of doing a stream show, and I figured a good selling point would be you and your expertise, and we would want to do something we love. So horror movies is the obvious go-to first. You floated the idea of doing The Ritual first. I was like, oh, hell yeah, I love The Ritual. We could do that one. So I decided to start my research. And obviously a good place to start that, me as a non-mental health professional could go into is, of course, the monsters design. Very cool design. Love it very much. Who made it? So there's a lot of information here because I looked up, behind the scenes stuff, and I saw a name. There's the guy who designed it, and I was like, I know this name, but it's not exactly a rare name. It could be a different guy. I go dig in deeper, and it's like, holy crap! No, this is exactly who I was thinking of. So, dude's name is Keith Thompson. Yeah, very cool guy. If you ever look him up, don't look him up right now. Don't cheat. He has a lot of very cool credits to his name. Hey, remember the movie Don't Be Afraid of the Dark?
Yes.
Katie Holmes. She's a stepmom. A girl and her dad renovating a house. Little monsters live in the fireplace. Guillermo del Toro. Yeah, so he designed the monsters, and he did the creepy mural that told the story of the monsters. Then he also worked on Pacific Rim. Then he also worked on Crimson Peak. He continued working with Guillermo del Toro, still working with Guillermo del Toro. They worked on Pinocchio together. They were working on Frankenstein together. Yeah, so that's cool, but there's more. He was also lead concept artist for the Hellraiser reboot. So yeah, he designed the new Cenobites. He designed the Leviathan. He designed some of the environments. Very cool stuff. Did you ever see VHS 94?
Maybe. I will be honest, I don't know which ones are which. I can tell you which ones were the first, and that's about it.
Okay, well, do you remember the segment where there's an investigative journalist going into a sewer drain to essentially talk about the mole people?
No, so I must not have seen VHS 94.
Okay, well, there's this monster that they're kind of sort of worshipping. Hey, that sounds familiar. That lives there, and he designed it. But it gets better because he also designed Warframes. I play that game every day, and he designed my boy Rhino. He designed Volt, Atlas, Stanax. He designed Citron and Caliban, and he did environmental work. He does tech work. He designed some of the weapons, and he's. I love this man, and I was very very pleased to find out that the guy who worked on Warframe is the same guy who worked on the Hellraiser reboot, is the same guy who worked on The Ritual, and who continues to work with Guillermo del Toro.
And which, for people who do not know Nox, which again, hi, we're new, so you don't know Nox. Hellraiser is by far his favorite series. So when they were doing a reboot, he was like, Psh, "This is gonna suck." And then we watched it, and he's like, "Wow, that was actually good." Okay.
Not
yeah, we made
perfect, but I do have some complaints, but a lot better than a lot better than some of the Hellraiser sequels. Well, most of them, because there's only 2 good sequels, and well, there's one that's okay. But anyway,
you have made me watch some bad sequels to that series, but no, that was a big deal too. But no, that's actually really really cool. But I think that is something that you'll see in a lot of horror, is that you will find people who are very good at very specific things. And I'm sure it'll come up to like actors that we'll see in movies repeatedly, like Javier Botet or Doug Jones, because of some of their special talents or the uniqueness. Javier Botet has a Marfan syndrome. Is that it? So
I,
his body proportions are a little bit, yeah. So it's kind of cool to see that. Nope, this guy is like, I mean, I wouldn't call him the new Stan Winston, because there's a level there that you got to meet. But yeah, very cool.
yeah. Well, I can't believe I skipped over this one on the list. But hey, remember the movie No One Gets Out Alive, which is also based on the novel by the same guy who wrote The Ritual? Why did I skip over that? Adam Neville.
Yeah, no, and that monster in that one was also very, very cool looking. Like, that was awesome.
Yep. Definitely a movie well worth watching. It has a message. It's a hard to miss.
Might show up on the stream at some point. Let's see, but
No, yeah, we can tell. I think it's on our list.
but yeah, no, I love unique designs of monsters, and again, I'm a super psych nerd, so but especially because, and Nox and I have talked about this a whole lot, like one of the reasons why I love scary movies and horror movies so much is because it's a safe way to explore fears and abstract ideas. I am not a person who likes to watch like hostile torture porn. Like, I don't like to see people getting hurt, but things where you have like paranormal representations of non-tangible things, I think is super super cool. Um so being able to have monsters kind of like what we were just talking about with Motor and all these other monsters and how unique they are, is to make it look like something you've never seen before, can sometimes stir some things in you when you're trying to actually name emotions or name fears, that I just think it's kind of cool to be that abstract, because then it kind of gets your mind going into, oh my gosh, is this a representation of what grief looks like to me? Again, I might actually be the person who realizes that's what my brain is doing. I don't know if others do, but that's why I love horror so much, and especially paranormal monster movies, supernatural stuff.
And not to skimp on the praise here, but also the special effects team who brought the creature to life did an excellent job. There's a really cool video you can find on YouTube where they show like side by side where when they modeled the creature, they actually modeled its muscle system like under the skin. And so they run it side by side with like a horse walking. And it's like, yeah, they modeled this thing after a horse. That's why it moves so realistically. It is so cool. Then a special thing is like, because obviously most of the effects with the creature are digital, because obviously, but they actually had a practical head for the creature, and there was an actor who would put their arms through to be the little arms at the end of the head. And you can see it in the scenes, like, there's the final confrontation where it's forcing him to the ground. You can see, the way the hands are moving, grabbing him. It's like, yeah, those are real hands. But also the scene where it like leans into the doorway and runs its hands along the door frame. You get the first good look at its eyes after it kills Dom. It's so cool. And not Oscar worthy, unfortunately, but like in the the horror film circuits, it won several awards for the creature effects. I had a list here. Yeah. So, best effects winner at the 2017 British Independent Film Awards, best creature effects at the 2019 Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, and the best special effects at the 2018 Fright Meter Awards. And I think Rafe Spall won best actor at one of these things. I should probably have had that up, but I don't.
But yeah, no, I think that this movie is very well, and I mean, I think the movie is well acted too. I know that the monster definitely steals the show. Um,
Yeah, the only complaints I've ever heard about the acting here is that you have a bunch of Danish actors pretending to be Swedish. Yeah, it's ignorant Americans don't notice, but this thing came out in the UK and apparently was complained about a lot there.
Yeah, I don't speak Danish or Swedish or Norwegian. Yeah, I wouldn't have noticed.
But yeah, from what I've seen, there was people who saw the trailers and it's like, Sweden, no, that's not Sweden.
Also, I'm not too surprised when you said it was Romania that that's where they were at, because I think, there are certain places in the world that you get certain tax benefits if you go there. Like every single movie that I've seen in Alaska actually was filmed in Canada. Right now, a lot of movies that you see filmed in the South, yeah, it's still the South, but instead of it being Louisiana or Texas where it's filmed in Atlanta. Um, and I think that there's a lot of places over in Europe too that they do the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, no, we're going to Romania or the Czech Republic instead of to these actual locations.
Oh, what was that interview I was telling you about before where Rob Lowe was talking about that game show he has, and they film over in the UK because it's cheaper to fly everyone there than it is to have them on studios.
I thought they filmed in Dubai.
Something like I can't remember, but
yeah,
I had no idea he had a game show. It's just someone showed me that clip. It's like, yeah, that sounds about right.
So, all right, what else do you got on the history of the movie that you did some research on?
Well, more like just a question to pose to you, because on the topic of common complaints about the movie, a lot of people complain that Luke being the only survivor kind of, makes it a real downer. They felt it would have been more impactful if he had succeeded in rescuing Dom or something like that.
Again, I feel like that defeats the metaphor, right? Like if anger and depression get out together, then no, we're still kind of stuck in some of these stages. But I think too, right? Like we can see, well, I think we can see, I feel like I could see how much growth he had from when this actual triggering event happened to where we're at now. Like you can see that he's doing the work and he's trying to grow from it, whereas the other ones aren't. So no, I think that the other people did have to die in order for him to survive, mostly for the metaphor of going through the stages of grief. Um, but I'll again, I don't know. I guess that's one of the things that I like about horror movies is I love how they don't always have happy endings. Not that I want it to be a downer, but I need it to be realistic. Like, okay, so Luke is running out of the forest and finally gets away from Motor. How is Dom going to do that with a screwed up name? Like, just doesn't make sense. And I'm all for suspending belief in certain things, but I need to have continuity within a storyline. Otherwise, I just flip a gasket and it just drives me insane. So no, I get where people would want a happier ending, especially when it's like, hey, your friend died at the beginning and now everybody else is dead too. But I feel like again, it's the metaphor of moving through the stages of grief. So I get it, but I don't agree.
I mean, fair enough. I mean, there's especially recently, there's tons of movies where I come away with a different impression of what happened than apparently most of the rest of the populace.
movies are escapism, right? Like it's for us to usually have a good time. As I say that we watch a lot of scary movies in our house. Um, but no, I think that it's one of those things that I understand why people would want it to be a bit happier, but I do think it goes against the premise of the movie.
Well, the another thing to add to it is that a lot of people feel justified in saying that the movie would have been better if it had a happier ending, because it's kind of up in the air of whether this movie was a success or not, because they're kind of hazy on how much the movie costs to make. They usually quote it at about $1 million. And then when it released in the UK movie theaters, it made about $1 million there, and then picked up like 700,000 internationally. Like, it made a lot of money in Mexico. It made over 200,000, but then it made like 40,000 in Argentina, and then made up the other in different territories. But then it got sold to Netflix for like, what was it, 4.65 million. So, obviously the company who made it was like, yeah, we made our money back. But then, did Netflix? Is this movie count as a success? It's kind of up in the air.
But I mean, I do understand where box office and numbers and definitely for the studios makes sense. But I think that there are some fantastic movies out there who have not made a ton of money or who people have never heard of. I mean, trust me, there are a couple on our list of things we want to review on this channel that you guys might not have heard of some of these movies. We love being on Shudder and looking at, oh, well, this movie seems interesting and I have no idea what this language is. Let's just check it out. And I've found some really cool movies in that way. That I don't think anyone's ever heard of. So yeah.
Shudder is getting more active in the public consciousness. I mean, the VHS series really helps because you not only have just the horror movie circuits, but apparently there was I don't think it was recently. It was like last year, year before. I don't know. One of the VHS movies had a segment that really blew up. I think it was the one that and Beyond. What was the director? It was because they're getting bigger name directors now. So Shudder is kind of taking off, getting popular, and that, of course, shines a light on all the other stuff that Shudder gets. You have your obscure Japanese horror movies. You have all the Indonesian stuff we've been watching. Weren't there like some Malaysian stuff mixed in there, some Thai stuff? Everyone go watch One Cut of the Dead. It's an amazing movie.
And we're never going to review that one, I don't think, because it's just fun to go in blind.
Yeah, do not look up the movie. Do not look up anything about it. Watch it blind. It's amazing. Trust me. There will be a point in the movie where you'll be like, what the hell? And trust me, it's good. You'll love it.
But no, we've had a Shudder subscription for 5 years, so we've been there since the beginning, and trust me, they got some duds too.
But yeah.
I enjoyed this movie, which is why I wanted to do the review on it with all of this. And again, especially what is it? The Host Korean movie. We get to a point where we get to the message and I think we turn to each other and I'm like, wow, they're going to just beat you over the head with a baseball bat with this message. Like, got it, guys, got the point. I feel like The Ritual is a little bit the same way. Like, it's pretty darn obvious to me what they were going for and what they were looking at, but I still enjoy it. I think it was well done, and especially the monster effect, man.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I mean, there's people I know who hate this movie, but they love the monster. You can't hate the monster. It's awesome.
But yeah, anything else that you got in your research about the movie or any other questions about it?
No, that's really all I got. I actually didn't expect us to go through it too quick. We got about 10 minutes left before where I expected us to end, and I honestly thought me gushing over Warframe for a bit there would run us over.
Well, what about, you did tell me something about the book, the main plot line.
I have a copy of the book right here. I think I read 6 or 7 pages. It's different. I kind of looked up a synopsis. Apparently, there was a thing recently online. Someone told me about it. Apparently, there was people talking about the book and how it is so different from the movie. Because the movie, we have these friends. They go out and there's this old timey cult based around this fairy creature or fae nature entity. But in the book, it's a heavy metal band that's trying to bring the creature back and take over the world? Question mark? Destroy the world? I'm still gonna read the book at some point, but that kind of not what I signed up for.
Like I said, I always think it's so interesting to hear the differences between books versus the actual movies. Um, I am one of those people that I usually like the book better than the movie, but
I
I
mean,
like this movie.
obviously, someone liked the book, and I've followed Clive Barker long enough to know that hey, getting film adaptations based off your books is hell. I remember reading Neil Gaiman's complaints about it as well. He had that short story about was his original story got butchered into becoming something about like a arcade game that turns people into serial killers. It was weird, but and that wasn't even the main part of the story. It was so weird. But God, I hope that was Gaiman. That wasn't Parker's, was it?
I have no idea what you're talking about on that one, so I'm not even gonna say yeah.
Well, they both have books that are short story collections, like Stephen King always did. And I read both of them at about the same time, and I always forget which one had which. Like, obviously, the one about the werewolf detective in the future, that was Neil Gaiman. And the one about the haunted bedsheet, that was Barker. And the one about the foot race against Satan to save the world, that was also Barker. Well, Beelzebub, not Satan, but same difference. Oh, that comment will piss people off. That's not the same difference. But
There's a whole hierarchy there, and yeah.
But no, that's all I had, unless because we want to talk about the plan here is that so we did our stream, we talked about it live. Success, question mark. The plan now is that I'm hopefully going to spend the next week, possibly two, editing the video down into a more digestible format where I hit on all the important parts and cut out the less important parts, and hopefully that gets more attention. I'm actually not expecting too much success too early on. We have socials, sort of. They're not active at all. There's nothing on them. I just pretty much secured them. Twitter, Instagram, and then the YouTube page. I have a Facebook for it, and Facebook is being finicky. The email is fighting me. I don't know. It didn't make any sense because I literally have it saved. Why didn't this work? So we might use Facebook. Not a big deal. Not everyone uses Facebook anyway. But yeah, what's up?
I was just gonna say, with all of this stuff, and you guys have all of these socials coming up, we will be a little bit more active. I'm just doing this because I have fun. My poor friends and poor Nox and poor anybody around me, you get me into these things, and I don't shut up in real life. Like this whole thing with the stream, this is what I'm like normally. So sorry. But no, put on there like movies that we're specializing in horror, so put movies that you'd like to see reviewed, movies that you'd like to hear a stance on. I have some clients who even sometimes go, "Hey, did you see this movie? What do you think?" So they might end up being on my stream at some point. We'll see. But yeah, hit us up with some recommendations. I do reserve the right to refuse certain movies. I'm not going to name ones that I already know that if you put them on that list, it's never going to happen. I am not going to sacrifice my mental health for movies that are just. Ugh.
We're never watching Cannibal Holocaust.
I'm never watching a Serbian film. Like,
Oh no, no one should watch that.
I know too much about that movie. But anything you want to suggest, it doesn't even have to be something that's mainstream or that we've seen. I'd have fun watching these things and looking at it from a therapeutic lens, since we're a Fearapeutic Lens. So yeah, use those socials, use the comment section, use all that stuff. I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yep. Any feedback we get, I will. I'm monitoring everything. Does not look like we got any one coming in to check in on us, but this will be up there. Hopefully, someone happens by, sees it, shares it, comments. But we're going to keep keeping at it. I'm not going to do a huge social media push until I think the plan was 5 videos, and then I'll push it, because it'll you have connections you might use. Yeah, so 5 videos, maybe doing a video a month, maybe 2 if I pull it off.
We'll see, guys, because like I said, this is fun for me. You have no idea how many clients I see in a week, and trying to do supervision stuff and trying to run a business. Like, this is fun. I like doing this sort of thing. So yeah, I'm going to post videos, and I just hope you guys can enjoy them. So.
All right. Well, we actually just went over the 2-hour mark. So yeah, I guess we will be calling it there. Oh, fair warning, I don't know what I messed up, but actually when I had it on the starting screen and I told you it shouldn't be picking up our voices, it was. So on the ending screen, it probably will. So when I hit end, just mute yourself so you don't talk.
Technical difficulties. Woohoo!
I'm new at this.
Anyways, everybody have a good night. Again, name is Renee, and I really appreciate you guys stopping by. Continue to check out my nerdiness.
Yeah, and I'm Nox, and we're shooting to be back in 2 weeks, so might have something by then. Might have a shorter, digestible video of the ritual by then. We'll keep you posted. Right, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.